So I made this video at the start of 2019 as a tribute to good old Screw Attack about the biggest video game headlines to be made that year. I wasn't sure if I'd have the same future-reading capabilities they did, but wouldn't you know it, some predictions actually did come true. So you know what, we're taking another crack at this to see if I can look into the inner workings of the gaming world once again. They say hindsight's 20/20, but that doesn't matter because we're only looking ahead here. So without further ado, hey, I'm the Cartoon Gamer with my top 10 headlines for 2020. Enjoy, everybody! For the second year in a row, Sony has decided to not show up at E3, something to do with it not being their style at the moment. This, of course, starts a domino effect. After Sony backs out, Nintendo backs out of the show completely, and that leaves Microsoft the task of holding the show floor by themselves. Before you know it, they get cold feet and jump ship last minute. So last minute, in fact, nobody knows until they fly out to the venue. Everyone makes it to the show floor, all the websites are ready to do their stuff, except nobody's there. Except maybe Ubisoft. They always have something. Anyone unlucky enough to be stuck in Los Angeles for those 3 days ends up having a lot less to do aside from fry in the unbearable summer heat. But on the bright side, there's not a lineup in sight, so you can buy overpriced pizza in record time. So we all know the story. Many moons ago, Shigeru Miyamoto said Pikmin 4 was in a near-complete state. And here we are almost 5 years later and nothing to show for it. With nary a word on the state of the game, we can only dream of what it could have been like, but those dreams die right now! News finally broke of the North American Pikmin 3 website going dark, and industry professionals are claiming the game could make its way to the Switch, but watch Nintendo throw everybody for a loop as they tend to do. If you ask me, they're just planting the seeds for a Pikmin 4 reveal by E3 time. What's the story this time around? What's it even gonna look like? Don't look at me, but I have a feeling it'll be something nobody could have ever predicted. Just you wait. At every turn, there are talks of video game properties getting turned into movies, and it's a whole nother story if they actually get made. But with this year comes the announcement of a film that's a little bit different. Coming from the legendary studio Rare, they announced they're getting into the filmmaking business, and their first project is based on one of their most recognizable properties. Grabbed by the Ghoulies! Oh, hell yeah! When it comes to casting, I think the perfect fit for Cooper would be someone like Michael Cera, but we all know they'll cast somebody like Chris Hemsworth instead. And I mean, they're both blonde, so it's close enough. And when it comes to Fiddlesworth done fiddlin', it only took me a minute before I said to myself, Brian Blessed. You know, this originally started out as just a dumb joke, but after writing this, I can't think of any better person to play the role, and now I want to see this happen. And hey, if somebody can recommend me a good fit for Mr. Ribs or Ma Soups, well, please let me know as soon as possible. Unlike Pikmin 4, where we don't even know if it's real at this point, there's nothing like actually seeing a game revealed with your own eyes, only for it to take years to come out. I can't stand when this happens, even if I'm not personally invested in the property. Things like the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Cyberpunk 2077 were unveiled in 2015 and 2012 respectively. As of this writing, they're still not out. In fact, it was announced in the same week they both got delayed again! Now, Ghost of Tsushima and especially The Last of Us 2 are in a similar boat, and I know some of you don't want to hear this, but they'll likely end up getting pushed back to the very end of the year. This is all part of Sony's plan to release the games on PS4 and the upcoming PlayStation 5 on the same day, giving the previous console a great, though untimely, swan song, and new console adopters a taste of what's to come. Any follow-ups to these games are unlikely, as they'd probably take until 2030 to get on shelves, and that's no joke. I don't have to tell you Crash Bandicoot's been on a roll these last few years. That's Canadian guy A's job. Came back to prominence with the Insane trilogy, raced into our hearts with nitro-fueled, and even brought a purple dragon along with him, surprise surprise. Nowadays, rumors are rumbling of an all-new Crash title, but even if those are true, that won't be his biggest presence this year. Nah, his big break will come in the form of the almighty kingmaker, Smash. Sometime this year will come another direct, and Crash's trailer will be woven right into the live presentation presentation. Sakurai's just sitting in his office when he hears something outside. He looks out the window and sees who else but the Bandicoot himself with megaphone in hand, just like the old commercial. In terms of costumes, Crash dons his classic American look and his Japanified persona, with the latter being his default look in Japan. His trailers will also reflect that, with the Japanese version being completely different and having his bonkers theme song in the background. As history has proven, Spyro will most likely show up some point down the road, but Snoop Dogg, I think I can safely say he's sitting this one out. People have been wanting a new 2D Mario game that isn't tied to the new Super Mario Bros. Brand for a long time, so what better way to get fans excited than with a look never seen before, but at the same time, one that's still very familiar. I'm sure you've come across artwork that looks like this, right? Well, that's primarily the work of illustrator Yoichi Kotabe, who's actually responsible for the current look of Mario and a lot of the assorted cast. Everyone goes on and on about his art, so this game will sport the aesthetic of his classic drawings. There's a common misconception more recent Mario artwork is also his doing, but that can mainly be attributed to Shigehisa Nakaue. There are a few similarities found in their styles, so Nintendo takes a bit of the old, a bit of the new, and mishmashes them together. Oh, but what about Wario Land Shake It, I hear you say? It had the right idea, but I want to see that applied to the rest of the Mario crew. And Miyamoto himself said in a 2017 interview that he'd be down for seeing that side of Mario come to the forefront. So, we shouldn't have to wait much longer now. After a whole year of playing NES games on Nintendo Switch Online, we've finally gotten stuff from the Super Nintendo. Sure, they're taking their sweet time with the releases, but there's a lot more to play here, including stuff like Stunt Race FX and Star Fox 2. Not bad! Of course, the next logical step is the Nintendo 64, so come this September, games from that library are added to the service at no extra charge. But 1 week in and there's already problems. Why? Because the emulation is complete garbage and online multiplayer is even worse. The only games that seem to work properly are Yoshi's Story and Mischief Makers. Fans are puzzled as to why this is happening, but rather than explain themselves, Nintendo backpedals on the N64 lineup and instead puts the Disney Afternoon Collection up on the eShop while they sort things out. Well, at least they're doing something right. And there is still no word on GameCube emulation, I am sorry to say. With 2021 being Sonic's 30th anniversary, Sega said it's got big plans for the Blue Blur, but this year's no slouch for him either. Not only is Sonic hitting the big screen, rocking a redesign I totally called by the way, a new game is in the works from the team behind the critically acclaimed Sonic Mania. You guessed it, it's a full-on sequel to Mania, aptly named Sonic Mania 2. One of the biggest gripes fans had with the first game was the lack of original stages. Well, Mania 2 fixes that by having nothing but new stuff throughout the game, as well as 3 acts for Angel Island as an apology for doing fans dirty in Mania Plus. In addition to Ray and Mighty, Bean, Bark, and Fang get added to the playable roster, and a brand new face shows up to oppose them, being Eggette, or Agatha as I like to call her. Who's she, you may ask? Oh, just the result of a fan taking a flipped Eggman sprite and giving it life as an adorable tyrant. Some might think this is a little too out there, but for a game that's made by the fans, for the fans, I say it's more than appropriate. And if this team has shown us anything, it's that they know what's right for Sonic better than most, so I say go for it. Now, I may have been wrong about the Game Boy Classic, but a mini-system still released last year in honor of its 30th birthday, that being the Genesis Classic. So following that, Sega is on a roll and gives the mini route another go. And call me crazy, but I've got a feeling it's gonna be for everyone's favorite underdog, the Dreamcast. Who cares if the console's 20th anniversary was last year? I'm sure a ton of you don't, and given the Genesis Classic missed the big date in Japan, Sega's proven it can be flexible. Doing what the PlayStation Classic never did, the DC embraces all the licenses and properties that made it what it is. While the library isn't as big, there's still a lot to sink your teeth into, with games including MDK2, Rayman 2, Sonic Adventure 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Rival Schools 2, Power Stone 2, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, and even a few Sega CD games like Earthworm Jim and Sonic CD. And the one thing that separates this from other classics on the market will be online play. Not just for titles that originally supported it, but even for some games that never had it before. As long as Sony botches a PS2 mini, I don't see how this could go wrong for Sega a second time. Alright, as to uphold tradition, let's hit the old recap before we get to number 1. Number 10, E3 is a no-show. Number 9, Pikmin 4 lives! Number 8, grabbed by the Ghoulies on the big screen. Number 7, a double whammy delay. Number 6,
your worst nightmare has arrived.
Number 5, 2D Mario to the max. Number 4, N64 games don't work on Switch. Number 3, Mania 2 puts its eggs in one basket. And number 2, the Dreamcast Classic. If you've been on the internet in the last 5 years, chances are you know who Toby Fox is by now. He put out a little game called Undertale in 2015, and the rest is history. In 2019 alone, the man did music for Game Freak's Little Town Hero, guest composed for Pokemon Sword and Shield, and even got one of his own characters in Smash Brothers. He starts out making Earthbound ROM hacks in high school. Next thing you know, he's in Sakurai's house playing a round of Smash with the man. You know, when I show love and affection for Nintendo, the best thing I get is one of my videos taken down. Funny how the world works, isn't it? Well, I say this is all part of an elaborate plot at the hands of Toby so he can rise through the ranks at the big N. He's on such good terms with them that before the year is over, we're gonna see him make a game under their name. And it's all going to come full circle, being an all-new Earthbound game scheduled for holiday 2021. But to tide everyone over, Toby's got something else up his sleeve. He somehow gets Nintendo to release Mother 3 overseas for the first time ever, using the fan translation that's been online since the late 2000s, no less. You might think this is nuts, but if anybody can beat the odds, it's gotta be Toby. Godspeed, my good man. Godspeed. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed what you saw, feel free to give this video a like, share with a friend, subscribe, check out my social media pages, my Patreon page, all that stuff that I always go on about. And if you guys have any insight on what we might see in the world of video games this year, feel free to share them in the comments below. And with all that said, I will see you guys next time. Later!